productivity matters because it's really about our economic growth in our society and our well-being. It's a fundamentally important part of how our economy works. So I translate productivity into the joy that you can get from doing a great job and having proper skills in doing that job. If we don't invest in productivity, then we've seen at a macroeconomic level, which people don't get that excited about, but they should, that in the productivity gap between small businesses and big businesses is something like 82%. We know that small businesses of under 50 people, only 32% of them have a high degree of digitization. That means that the 70% of employees may be doing roles that could get replaced if they don't retrain, and that almost certainly they will be showing lower productivity. The loss in GDP at a macroeconomic level is something like 100 billion in the UK because there's been a slower adaptation of technology in the small businesses. Small businesses, 95% of the jobs in our economy are from small businesses. Now, if there's a systemic lack of investing in tools that allow them to be deeply productive, such as digitization, then that is why we have their problem. I think the key things that we can do to tackle productivity is, or increase productivity, particularly amongst employees in small businesses and medium-sized businesses and charities, is help them on their digitization journey. And that's very much something that I think I do every day. If I think about Founders for Schools, we're a platform to help teachers get people who are doing the new future of work jobs and who have adapted new skills into the classrooms to help illustrate what the future of work looks like when you're working in a productive or high productivity organization. Some of the things that we do at Founders for Schools is provide courses for teachers to help them become more digital so that they're not left behind. Often there'll be some platforms that are used to say, well, you should train on this, but it's not a productivity tool. There's a huge number of productivity tools and diagnostics that there are. So I would love all organizations, and particularly helped by government programs, to do a productivity diagnostic and then work through a program to increase that productivity. I think there's a huge amount of evidence to show that digitization and training in how to become more digital is the highest, most important way of boosting productivity. There are other ways, but easy ones. If you think about this is almost like a disease, and there are a bunch of treatments. Some of them are invasive and take a long time, and some of them are simple and still have a big impact. This is what I like about digitization. Regardless of industry, there are some tools, some tricks and tips that will absolutely boost your productivity in a very short period of time. And I think our first step should be looking at those tried and tested boosts so that we get big jumps, and then we can be more sophisticated later on once the learner, in this case someone who leads an organization, has made the first few steps. I'm really worried about, although this is a chronic issue, it's been absolutely exacerbated by COVID. We've got reports from Small Business Britain showing that 72% of UK SMEs expect COVID to reduce their revenues by 50% because they can't access their customers online because they didn't make previous investments. So, making sure that those guys understand the digital ways of getting to their long-established customers online now in the next 30 days is super important to help them from literally going bust. It may be their fault that they've underinvested in digitization and productivity tools previously, but now they're looking at closing down their businesses, furloughing, making redundant their employees, and we shouldn't let that happen, and we don't have to let that happen. One of the most fascinating things I came across when I wrote the Scale Up report to UK economic growth was the in clusters like Manchester, if you have the cluster coordinating, the cost of creating an additional job is 90 times less than if you are acting alone. So the most important lesson, I think, for our productivity is we probably have it right here underneath our nose. We probably know that it's good, but let's make sure that the journey that someone goes through as they navigate these new platforms is a smooth one and is coordinated so that they can get from A to B really, really quickly, rather than struggling in a non-coordinated, non-collaborative way.